I might almost start in a sort of surprisingly inhibited way for somebody who has been known to talk in public before. And the beginning of barefoot collecting actually came in 1964, I think, with the picture up there. I leap around. When I was given that, and on the back of it was written "Towards a Good Collection," and in some senses, everything around here is where that led to, because for whatever reason, I did start collecting, because I bought my first picture 6 months after I was given that. But one then moves on, I suppose, to the why. And I've been thinking about this quite a lot, and wondering whether why one collects art is because one can't be asked to go out and collect train numbers, or because one's not enough of a sort of, I'm about to say an anorak to go out and get the first 1,000 penguins ever published, or whether it's something to do with the male gene, because males seem to go around and do things like collect bus tickets. Having worked at bus fair in Duxford, I know people do collect bus tickets. So is it something sort of slightly pathological? Or is there a more sensible reason that actually you can acquire things which give you constant pleasure year after year, decade after decade, and that seems a more sensible way of spending one's surplus loot, if one has any, than spending it on all sorts of other things. So there's the why this all happens, and I'll talk a bit more about that. There's also the how. I mean, how does one acquire an art collection? And there's a sort of mystique about this, which I always kind of try to fight against whenever I talk to people about this sort of thing. It's not actually that difficult. It is very easy to pick up bits of art. You know, you can go to galleries, but, you know, artists are pathetically grateful sometimes to get rid of their work. Not only because, you know, occasionally it enables them to actually live for a bit, but also because I assume, and I think I'm right, that it's quite nice to think that somebody likes your work enough to spend good money on it. So the how is, you know, people need to be told in some senses how easy it is and all the different ways in which you can acquire art. But the how, you know, speaks for itself in some senses. The what is considerably more difficult. Because how do you decide, if you decide at all, what you want to get? And you could approach it in a way of saying, you know, I am going to concentrate on a, you know, particular style, a particular genre, a particular period, even a particular artist. Or you can say, actually, I will consistently look for things that I like and want to live with, and those are what, if I can afford it, I will buy. And I suppose that's been the approach I've taken. This raises the vexed issue of how you actually afford this particular caper. And one of the reasons for having this exhibition is over the years I have been consistently annoyed by people who think that collecting art is something that only people like David Cameron can do, and it's not something that the rest of us can do. You know, we're plebs and we don't collect art, as I'm sure various London coffers are now currently talking about. But you don't actually have to have huge amounts of loot. You might need to decide that that's where you want to put small amounts of money which you could spend on something else. But it doesn't take very much. Now, as various people in the room know, I'm not very good on visual aids or anything else. I have brought a visual aid. This is the money box. This is the first money box in which £1 a day goes in for the art fund. It's not the current money box because his bottom fell out, and therefore he's not very, very useful. The discipline of putting £1 a day into a fund that you actually say, this is for pictures. Even in my case, when you were on benefits, when £1 a day was actually significant, is actually very good, because it does mean that if you see something, you can suddenly say, actually, I don't have to sort of think too much about this. There is something in the art fund and I can augment it or whatever else. So it doesn't have to be a very expensive occupation. And I found that on school trips, when I wasn't sneaking in to do underage drinking, I was actually going off to places like the Walker Art Gallery or Manchester City Gallery, and because of where I was living, I was going off on long walks on my own and finding myself in the Prado. So somehow it had already begun to happen. This, I think, was more or less before I'd started acquiring any art. And I already was thinking that pictures do something for you. They do all sorts of things for you. But that in itself is not enough, because what I could have gone on to do is to get lots of Thames and Hudson books, and I could get exhibition posters, and I could continue to go to gallery after gallery after gallery. And at no stage could I have decided to start actually acquiring the stuff myself. And I did all of those things. Thames and Hudson, yep. Gallery posters, yep. Constantly go to a new town, nip into the gallery and see what's there. And I still do that. I can't go to a new place without actually thinking, is there a gallery? Is there going to be some sort of undiscovered gem? And very often there is. But you then move on, and I think what happens is you realise that in terms of sort of mental well-being, if you see a picture that does something for you, and you think, I want to be able to look at this consistently, not necessarily all the time, but I always want it to be available for me to look at, I think it would be nice to get it. And I think that's what happened to me. And it wasn't about, I want to be a bit of an aesthete, show off, I'm a guy who buys art. Or, to sort of say this is something I do, like people go off and buy, kind of every bootleg album made by whatever person. There was a realisation that these are objects, if one wants to call them that, which are going to give you consistent pleasure over and over and over again. And it's worth going without to actually have them. And in some senses, that's where one gets to some of the stuff that's round here. Now, this is where everybody cranes their necks, because right at the back wall, it's not the first picture I ever got. It's Sidney Nolan's Swimmer, known to a lot of people in this room as Jaws, because it's very obvious that somebody's being disemboweled by a shark, let's face it. I saw that in Marlborough Fine Arts in 1968, early 1969, and I absolutely loved it. I mean, it was quite a big exhibition, but that was the one I liked most, and providentially, it was on the front of a relatively cheap sort of card catalogue which they'd given out, or was selling. So I spent my, £1 or whatever it was on this, and I had it propped up on my desk forever. And then come back end of 71, early 72, I earned my first money. £40 for a month's evenings spending time with homeless families and traveller kids. Dirty job, but somebody had to do it. It was actually really great. But 40 quid was the month's money. And so I had this in my hot little hand, and I rushed down to Marlborough Fine Arts. I said, I don't suppose you've still got a copy of Swimmer. And they said, oh, we do. So I handed over 30 quid out of the 40.